Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be talking about our updated winter forecast here today. Now, before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Now, I would highly recommend that you check out our very exciting Patreon page. It's really cheap for what you're getting. You're getting a lot of in-depth weather information, more in-depth than even on my channel. We're actually going to be making a post about this winter forecast where we're going to talk about the reasons why we think everything is going to happen the way we think it's going to happen. So I would highly recommend that you check that out. That's going to be in the description and the pinned comment down below. Now, for today's comment of the day, I want to know, which month do you think is going to be the coldest and snowiest this year? Let me know in the comments down below and let me know why, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Alright, now let's get into this video, and we're taking a look at our precipitation forecast first things first. So this is our slightly below average precipitation region, and like I said, there's some massive changes. One of those changes is the southeast and the entire east coast is expected to be in the slightly below average precipitation region, and I know this is disappointing to a lot of you, but this is typical in a La Nina. We originally thought that the trough would be centered a little bit further eastward than we're thinking right now, and that actually really dictates that storm track. So that's why that change has come in. We'll be talking about that alongside many other factors in our Patreon post that I told you guys about a second ago. Now, before I move on, I would like to mention that if you comment your location down below and like the video, I will be picking some of those comments and I'll be giving you guys a written forecast. So definitely do that down below, and I'll be replying to many of those. All right, now what we're going to do here is we're going to move on. We're going to start talking about the moderately below average precipitation region, and then we're going to start talking about the above average precipitation, eventually the temperature forecast, snowfall forecast, and the very exciting overall forecast. All right, now here we are taking a look at that moderately below average precipitation region, and for California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, we're anticipating some moderately below average precipitation. In a La Nina, usually the storm track goes right on above California, and it usually stays pretty stubborn, so I don't expect too many storm systems to really come through the southwest there. Very typical in a La Nina here, and this is actually one of the only things in this entire video that I have not changed at all. This has been here since many of my other winter forecasts, so this is one of the things that's going to go unchanged. Now let's start talking about that above average precipitation, and this has been receded further westward, but for the Northwest, the Rockies, the Upper Midwest, the Great Plains, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, all of these regions have already had this. It's really just been deducted from the Northeast there and pushed further westward, really. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at those two regions that have moderately above average precipitation. That's coming up in just a moment. Alright, now here's the first of two of those regions, and first things first, for the Pacific Northwest and through the Rockies, this has been expanded a little bit, but this is another thing that's generally been there since the beginning of our forecasts. Again, in a La Nina, this is very typical. I'm starting to think that the Rockies could have the best winter they've had as far as more snow in years. I'm thinking that we are going to have a massive winter for you guys. I know a lot of people that live there are probably always sick of it, but for skiers, I think this is going to be a great year for you guys out there in the Rockies. Also, the Cascade Mountains out there in the Pacific Northwest, same exact story. Now here's our second moderately above average precipitation region, and this one used to be a little further east, but generally we have had an area of moderately above average precipitation somewhere in this general vicinity. But for the Great Lakes, a lot of the upper Midwest, and portions of the plains, we are expecting to have moderately above average precipitation. Very typical to have a lot of clippers in a La Nina with that storm track coming from the Pacific Northwest. A lot of times it's going to push straight eastward and turn into clippers. We're actually in that same exact pattern right now in October. It's October 19th at the time I'm making this video, and we are already having storm systems just like this happening. So we're already starting to get into that pattern very, very early on, and I think that's a sign of things to come for sure. Now we're about to move on to some of the factors that have changed the most. The precipitation forecast has changed slightly, as you've probably seen, but the temperature forecast, the snowfall forecast, and the overall forecast look significantly different. And the thing I want to mention here is a lot of people are going to be angry. A lot of people are going to feel like, why did you forecast one thing and now it's changed? And the only answer I have to that is I'm not too prideful to change it. If I feel like this is the latest, greatest information, I'm not going to have a bias towards my previous forecasts and call for something that I don't really have confidence in. I will gladly change the forecast if it's warranted. And that's what I'm doing here. I hope a lot of you can appreciate that, but I know there's going to be some people who don't. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on towards that temperature forecast, as well as the snowfall forecast, and then finally that overall forecast. So here's the temperature forecast, and first things first, we're talking about the above average temperature forecast, and for this one, as you can see, this also extends up the East Coast. And we have in previous installments had Southeast being a little bit warmer than normal, but never this far north up the coast. And really, it's all because we expect that trough to be centered a little more over the central United States rather than the eastern United States. And this is typical in a La Nina, but originally the North Pacific had a pattern set up that originally led us to believe that likely that trough would be centered further eastward. Now that has changed quite significantly actually in the North Pacific, and now we're expecting it to be a little more west-based, a little more over the central United States. That's the big change. All right, now let's talk about that moderately above average temperatures, and it's really for the same regions that have the moderately below average precipitation. This region looks to have a big ridge that doesn't allow any precipitation to come in, and this is again just something that is very typical in a La Nina. And actually, if you watched our previous winter thoughts video, we talked about some of our analogs, and pretty much all of them had this feature of a southwest ridge, a really potent one actually. Now, one thing I want to mention for sure, for especially the East Coast here, this does not mean that the whole winter is going to be warm. This just means that if you take the 3 months, most of the time it's going to be warm. So there could be one whole month that is colder than normal, and then the other 2 are warmer than normal. Maybe even half of it is warmer than normal, the other half is colder than normal. It could be something like that. In any of those cases, we would have a significantly colder and snowier winter than last winter. I've been trying to say this. Last winter was historically snowless, broken records all across the eastern half of the United States, and also it was one of the warmest winters we've ever had in history. The odds of us having 2 record-breaking snowless winters in a row are overwhelmingly low, and I am very confident that that is not going to be the case. So that is the most positive thing I have to tell you guys at this point if you love the cold and you love the snow. Now for our slightly below average temperatures, for the Pacific Northwest in through the Rockies, and then the Plains and the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, all of these regions are going to have some slightly below average temperatures. Let's just take it and take a look at that moderately below average temperature region. And it's really just overtaking some of the similar regions, just a little more receded obviously. And this is just a very typical La Nina setup. Very classic. The models like this solution. My analogs love this solution. They look exactly like this. And really just history would tell us this is very similar to the pattern we're going to have throughout this winter. I feel very confident in this forecast. Now, let's talk about, last but not least, our far below average temperature region. And for Montana and through the upper Midwest, we're expecting far below average temperatures. In La Ninas, usually we do tend to see that cold air mass really move into this north central region of the United States, and I don't think this year will be an exception at all. I think I expect this region to be very far below normal, and I think we could see the polar vortex really make an appearance a few times this winter, especially for those regions. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to move on, and we're going to take a look at that very exciting snowfall forecast, which probably a lot of you are waiting for, and then finally we will take a look at that exciting overall forecast. Stay tuned. Alright, now here we are taking a look at that snowfall forecast, and this one has changed slightly. If you're in the western half of the United States, I don't think this has really changed too much. The Rockies, I am expecting them to be a little snowier than I originally anticipated. I think that we could have, one of our more snowy winters we've had out there in a long time. Earlier in the 2010s and before that, we've had very cold and snowy winters out there, but it's been a while, and I think that we could have another far above average snowfall winter for you guys out there in the Rockies. For the upper Midwest and through the Great Lakes, portions of the Ohio Valley as well, I do expect that we will have some above average snowfall there as well. And last winter, a lot of you were disappointed, especially on the eastern half of this, so Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. I was getting a lot of comments from you guys saying we've had like no snow. I do think that's going to turn around. And then generally, if you're along the East Coast or the southern half, or I'd say even the southern third of the United States, I am anticipating you to have some below average snowfall. Again, in the East Coast, what I'm forecasting here is still significantly colder and snowier than last winter. So you need to keep that in mind as a reference. This is looking a lot snowier and colder than last winter. because if it was last winter, I would have a little section over the East Coast and say practically no snow because that's what happened last year. So to say that we're going to have some slightly below average snowfall is still, 10 to 20 times better than last winter. So significantly snowier than last winter. Now, finally, here is our exciting overall forecast. Now, I'm going to start out in the Pacific Northwest. Very cold and stormy. We used to have cool and stormy. Now I'm expecting it to be even colder. Very cold and stormy out there for the Pacific Northwest. Mountain snow. This hasn't changed what it looks like, but actually how I feel about it is that I think it's going to be even snowier than I originally anticipated. I've actually alluded to that many times throughout this video so far. Now, for the Southwest, I do expect it to be hot and dry still. That's one of the things that really I've held true to throughout all of my forecasts, and I'm still sticking to that. Now, for the South Central United States, I'm expecting warmer, but really not too warm. I think there could be some cooldowns from time to time. It's generally going to be a little bit drier as well. Now, for the areas just to the east of the Rockies in that blue region, I expect it's going to be cold and snowy. And same story for this region, similar to that white region. I do anticipate this will be one of your coldest and snowiest winters in a while that you've had. Maybe not coldest, but definitely snowiest. To the north of there, Arctic invasions for this purple region. And to the north of that, we're going to have an even more potent air mass, which I call my polar vortex zone, because again, I do anticipate the polar vortex will make an appearance or two this winter, which has been a while since we've seen that happen. I think the winter before last one we did, and then also 2013 to 2014, it obviously made many appearances that winter as well. Now, for our worst of winter region, this has significantly shifted west. I think Missouri and through Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, I think that's where we're going to have the worst of winter. I think a very active storm track is going to set up through here, and we could have many snowstorms, even some really big ones, possibly a blizzard or two throughout this region. It just feels like one of those winters to me, where that region is really going to feel the brunt of it. Now, to the south of there, winter battle zone. On the western half of that, it hasn't changed much, but on the eastern half of the winter battle zone, we've seen it significantly shift further north. This even goes up into the mid-Atlantic. That's because of the drier and warmer conditions. The winter battle zone is just going to be shifted a little bit further to the north. To the south of there, southeast ridge, that's really going to be the dominant air mass that holds the cold back and doesn't allow for those very, very cold air masses to make their way very far eastward in many cases. There will obviously be some very big cooldowns throughout the winter and some snow opportunities for the entire East Coast on many different occasions. We're just not going to be locked in a pattern like that for very prolonged periods of times most of the time. So there might be some times where we have like a 1 or 2 week period that's very cold and possibly even very, very snowy. But it's a 3-month period we're talking about here. So a majority of that 3-month period will not be that pattern. Now, finally, we have more snow for that blue region, and you might be wondering, why does it say more snow when you're calling for below average snow? Well, by more snow, I mean more snow than last winter, because last winter we had historically low amounts. So I want to let you guys know, like I've already done in this video, that we are expecting much more snow than last winter here from direct weather. And finally, that white region, that's where we expect lake effect snow to actually be a little bit above average. So I do anticipate quite a bit of lake effect snow to happen throughout those lakes regions. All right, now, thank you so much for watching this video. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, what is the earliest snow you've ever had? And Ron Dumontier, I don't even know how to, Demontier, I don't know how to say your name. I apologize if I butchered that. He or she said, the latest or the earliest. Here in northern Montana, we have snow every single month of the year. I celebrated 4th of July with 3 feet of snow. And I think that comment is so funny because it's so true. Like, is that the latest or the earliest? It's like right near the halfway mark of the year. Like, what is it? I would argue that that might be actually the earliest, because I would put right in between June and July as my kind of threshold for latest or earliest. I don't know. That's a really cool comment. Thank you so much for commenting. Anyway, for today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our diamond patrons Alicia Davis, Madbirds, Cindy Klein, Dan Hazard, and Mark J, alongside our platinum patrons Larry LePan and Donna Carnes. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. I will see you guys in the next one.